to illuminate a journey of emotional resilience. I'm your host, Brandon, and we're here with another topic discussion on another Wednesday. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for jumping in and, listening to the different segments we have going on each week. It's always a fun time doing this, and always good just, being able to look at aspects of my life and, things that I need to continue to work on as I bring this to the forefront of my mind every week. Uh, so this is a really good build off of what we did last week with the journey of self-discovery and figuring out your identity as you go through life, how that kind of can change and transition, and figuring out what's good for you, what's bad for you, what you want to represent, what you don't want to represent, and kind of navigating that journey to figuring out who you really are, and be able to work with that as you transition to different moments of your life. And I think one thing that really can play a part in that is perfectionism and wanting to do things perfect, or that idea of, that pursuit of flawlessness and high standards, and, wanting everything to look a certain way, or at least wanting to portray it a certain way, right? Because sometimes if we can't exactly line things up in our life, or we can't figure things out in our life, we can always pretend that it's lined up in our life. We can always show off that everything's perfect and looks good and feels good. And we can always present that if we don't always have it. And that can be really stressful, right? If you're always looking to be perfect, if you're looking to do things right all the time, and if you're looking to never fail, that's going to create a lot of stress in your life. That's going to create a lot of anxiety in your life. That's going to create some depression in your life when you don't have those things. And then if you're constantly striving for that, if you're constantly trying to hold yourself to this standard that is almost impossible, you're probably going to be left with a feeling of not feeling good enough most of the time. And that's what we want to look at in today's episode, is embracing those imperfections, embracing that journey to striving what you want out of life, and realizing that it's not going to be perfect. That path isn't always going to be clear and, well lit and just beautiful. Sometimes it's going to be hard to find that path. Sometimes it's going to be dark. Sometimes it's going to be scary. Sometimes you're going to have to take a risk in order to gain and get to what you want in life. And sometimes that want of perfectionism is really what holds us back, is what keeps us from reaching those moments of our life, and keeps us from really hitting those levels that we want. And with that idea of it and striving to be that is always going to be impossible. We're in a society now where it tells us that things have to be perfect. You have to be perfect, you have to look perfect, you have to act perfect in order to be happy, in order to be successful. And in reality, it's presented that way, it's shown off that way. But we know as we go through life, shit just isn't perfect. And when we sit in that perfectionism, when we sit in that, and that's the only thing we want, that's the only way we're going to move forward, it's probably never going to happen. You're probably going to be sitting there for a long time. You're probably going to be procrastinating. You're probably going to be putting something off until you can get it just right, until you can get it perfect. When in reality, sometimes we just need to take that risk. We need to jump in. We need to tackle something, even if that means we're going to fail that first, second, third, 100th time. And that's okay. That's the way we start to move past that perfectionism. That's when we can start embracing our imperfections, and then growing to that to get to whatever levels we want to. Because perfect just isn't realistic. If you're listening to this, if you're thinking about that, I think you've realized in your life that nothing's going to be perfect. Things are going to get in the way. Things are going to happen. Battles are going to come up. Challenges are going to get in front of you, and obstacles are going to be something you have to get around. And it's never going to be that perfect path to that perfect ending, right? So then it just becomes recognizing that impact that perfectionism has on our lives, and what happens in those moments, and how it holds us back, and how it stops us from actually moving forward in that and starting that journey to whatever it is that we want. Perfectionism can cause, different things in our life, right? It can have that impact in different ways. I kind of mentioned a minute ago just how it can impact our mental health and manifesting it in ways of anxiety, depression, burnout, negative feelings, negative self-talk, and it can manifest its in a lot of different ways, and being able to recognize that either in the moment, which is always really tough, right? When you're in the moment, it's hard to recognize good, bad, indifferent. Usually it takes some removing ourselves from that moment and, maybe even growing past it years later, days later, whatever it is, we can look back and say, oh yeah, that's what held me back. Or yeah, that's what moved me forward in that. So we don't always see it in the moment, but it is something that we can look at from different points in our life and look at the impact it had on us, right? And there's different moments in my life where I can look at that idea of perfectionism and how it held me back at certain times, or how it kept me from just taking that first step. And I think that's what, at least for me, that's what made that scary. That's what made it hard. Is, oh, if I start this, I have to do it 100% right. I have to do it perfect. I have to stay on top of it, and there's no room for failure. There's no room to mess up, slip up, take a day off, whatever it is. And that idea has definitely prevented me from taking that first step. Or, I've taken that first step, and then that idea of all or nothing, that idea of I have to go at this full blown, has also, led me to burning out. And I can think about, especially in recovery and being, super involved in that early on, whether that was meetings, sponsors, step work, a lot of different things that, I would just look at my life and look at the growth and look at, okay, these are things I have to change. I have to change basically everything about myself, everything about my life, all the habits I've created, all the behaviors that I've learned. I have to change all of those in order to stay off drugs, in order to change. And so I went into that with that all or nothing mindset, and, doing that for really 2 years of just like meetings every day, sometimes 2 or 3 meetings, meeting up with different people in recovery. And my life was just all about recovery, and there wasn't much breathing room. There wasn't much that I was allowing in, because I was all or nothing in this mindset that this is what I have to do in order to change that. And then things started happening, right? Life started happening, getting clean, really working on myself brought me new opportunities. It opened new doors for me. It, built new relationships that brought new opportunities. And so, I started coaching, I started working, and it became harder to manage that idea of all or nothing with recovery and NA and meetings and all of that. And I eventually hit that point of burnout with it. And it just, like, almost immediately, I just removed it all from my life, and it all just went away, because I was in that mindset of I have to do this full blown. There's no once a week for me. There's no twice a week. There's no I'll do this part or that part. It was really that mindset of I have to be all in on this. And then, 2 years clean, I think it was the last time in that period I went to a meeting. And then I really kind of just stopped looking at that stuff. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped really connecting with the people in the rooms, and the basis of my recovery. I started to move past it. And it wasn't all a bad thing. I had new opportunities in my life. I started coaching multiple teams. I had a full-time job that I enjoyed. Started building relationships again. Eventually had a kid, and then a second one. And so life kind of took over. And that all or nothing mindset, though, took away that basis, like I said. And so I stopped really paying attention to the little things. Yeah, I was still off drugs. I was still able to keep that up. I was, I guess I've been perfect in that, but I wasn't perfect or even close to perfect in taking care of myself. And that's when, years after that, some of those old habits, those old attitudes, those old thought patterns started creeping its way back into my life because I had just completely stopped taking care of it. And then I created this mindset of, oh yeah, I need to go back. I need to start doing these things again, but I can't commit to like I did. So what's the point? You know, it was again, it was that all or nothing mindset, and that all or nothing mindset, that perfectionism at that moment held me from ever going back. And so it was just recently where, you know, I made my my way into meetings again for the first time in 7 years. Um, and I only went to a couple, and you know, even then that perfectionism still kept me from really throwing myself back into it. So it can look like different things in our lives, you know, or I've expressed it a lot with burnout. Like I have to do so much. I have to be, you know, super successful. And in order to do that, I have to put all my time, all my energy, all my thoughts into whatever it is that I'm working on. And then it leads me to, oh man, I'm exhausted. And then that exhaustion lasts a day, it lasts 2 days, it lasts 3 days, it lasts a week, it lasts a month. And eventually that, whatever it is that I was working on, kind of falls by the wayside. And so that idea of perfectionism can either lead us to burn out in a lot of those things that we're trying to do, or it can just prevent us from even trying in the first place. And if I would have had a different mindset going into some of those things, easing my way into it, or being okay with, yeah, I don't have to do so much. It doesn't have to be a perfect, you know, a meeting every day, and I don't have to jump right back into the step work or the sponsor or all that stuff. I don't have to do it that way. It doesn't have to look perfect. You know, nothing in life is perfect, but when I convinced myself that it had to look perfect, then it was hard to ever do it. And so, you know, those thoughts of not being able to embrace something that was going to be imperfect, embrace something that I knew was probably going to be a little rocky, a little hard, just because of other responsibilities, of other things coming up, of other things I was dealing with at the time. I kept myself from doing it. And it's something that hurts us in life, right? When we stop ourselves from doing either the things that we love, or we stop us from taking a chance or taking a risk to something that can be really good for us because we don't think we can do it 100%. We don't think we can do it perfectly when we start off. It's going to take away opportunities from us, and it's going to, you know, we're going to procrastinate, and our growth is going to stagnate, and we're never really going to be able to hit those heights where if we just jump into something and we embrace that journey and we embrace those challenges, those obstacles as we go. And it can, you know, that's part of it, influence our decision making, right? It's part of like, all right, well, if I can't do this all or nothing, then I'm going to have to put it off until I do. I'm going to have to set this aside until I can do it all or nothing. And then, you know, that that time may never come. You may never feel like I can put all my energy in this. So then you just never do it. Right. Or we're indecisive. We're like, should I do it? Should I not? And we spend days, weeks, months. We spend so much time just being indecisive instead of just trying it. And then figuring out how we balance that in our lives, figuring out how we manage that in our lives. And it's something that can influence that in a lot of different ways, right? It stops us from taking that risk, like I've mentioned, and that healthy risk that we could take, that applying for a job, or that, you know, taking a new job, or that, you know, trying to do something that's good for us, whether that's exercise or a certain, you know, sleep schedule, or a diet, or just those different things that are going to be healthy for us, right? Putting down your phone, putting away your, you know, turning off the TV. It's like, oh yeah, well, I said I was going to turn off TV at 9 o'clock. I didn't do it last night, so I can't do it tonight. No, I mean, yeah, you messed up, or you didn't hit your goal the day before, but that doesn't mean you can't just pick up and start it again that next day. And that's something that we can, you know, start to add into our lives to start overcoming some of those thoughts of perfectionism, right? Those goals, you know, some self-compassion, some, you know, just being okay with that imperfection, embracing that imperfection, challenging that negative self-talk that tells us, well, you didn't do your full workout yesterday, so you might as well give up. Or you ate that cookie, so you didn't stick to your diet, so you might as well just stop. And when we when we let those things take over, we never make that progress. It's either always start and stop, start and stop, start and stop, or we just never start. So I think one way that can really help us embrace that imperfection and not let that perfectionism become so big that it makes us indecisive or it makes us procrastinate that idea or that journey that we want to start is just setting some realistic goals, right? You know, setting goals that are actually attainable. I'm sure some of you have heard of the acronym SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and in time. And you can detail a goal by doing that. And then you look at what type of goals keep you motivated, right? Is it small goals? Is it big goals? Is it like little stepping stones to a big goal? Whatever it may be. But if you set that realistic goal to something you can actually commit to and you can actually do, that can help you get started on that journey. For example, if I were to say I want to work out 3 hours a day, lifting and running, and I want to change my diet completely, and I want to do all that starting tomorrow. Like, that sounds great. But I'm not going to do that starting tomorrow. For one, I don't have 3 hours of my day I can set aside if I want to still get things done in my life. And two, I just don't have the resources to stick to a perfect diet right now. And so if I set that as my goal, tomorrow's going to come and I'll be like, shit, I couldn't do it. Or I messed up. I already missed the first day. So what's the point of starting tomorrow? I'm not going to work out at all. I'm going to eat, all the junk that I want. And I'm just going to continue on this. And maybe I'll start the next day. Well, I'm going to do that for forever. If that's my mindset, if those are the goals I'm setting, trying to hit, it's just going to be impossible for me. But if I say, hey, I want to work out 30 minutes and I want to do that 5 days a week, right? That's way more realistic. That's something that if I set for the morning and I miss that, I can pick up 30 minutes in the afternoon. I can pick up 30 minutes in the evening. So not only is that an actual manageable time for me with a full-time job and 2 kids and just other responsibilities in my life, it's something that if I miss that first time of the day for it, there's still other moments where I can make it up. And that's realistic. So then it's not as overwhelming, and if you can't even start there, maybe it's 15 minutes. Maybe it's 3 days a week. Maybe it's just something to ease you into that so you can build some confidence, right? You can start saying to yourself, oh yeah, I can do this. I do believe in myself. And then as you progress, you can add in 15 more. Now you're at 30 minutes. You can add it in another day. So now you're at 4 days a week. And you can just progress and you believe in yourself and you build that self-belief to say, oh yeah, now I can do this. Now I can take that next step forward. Now I can reassess my goals, set that next level of realistic goals, and then be able to keep going. And so that's a really good way to overcome perfectionism, right? That's a really good way to embrace imperfections and realize, yeah, this isn't going to be easy. It's going to be tough. But if I set these kind of small marking spots or these stepping stones to keep moving, then I'll be able to actually accomplish what I'm setting out to do. And I think that self-compassion with it, right, is another big part. We can be, really hard on ourselves. We're our own worst critics, right? We make it tough on ourselves just to accomplish things and get things done. So to have some self-compassion to where when you do fail, you can not totally give up on yourself. Yeah, you can challenge it. You can look at the circumstances of why you did fail that day. You can learn from it and say, okay, well, Tuesdays aren't going to work because I just got too much going on. So if I want my 3 days or 4 days a week, Tuesdays isn't going to be one of them. And so then you learn that in that process and you can keep moving forward. But if you don't have that self-compassion to say like, hey, you messed up, you can try it again tomorrow. Instead, hey, you messed up, you failed, you suck, you can't do it. Then you're going to throw your hands in the air and say, I give up. And so without that self-compassion, we can't really get past some of those different challenges or those obstacles. So that's a good one to add. And then, that kind of goes along with challenging that negative self-talk, being able to say like, that's not good for me. that me in my own head telling myself I'm worthless, telling myself I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to be good enough, or, you can't do this, challenging that, say, no, I can do this. It might take me a little bit longer. It might look a little different than other people. But that's something that again, we don't want to do. If I'm on my fitness journey, if I'm on my, coaching journey, if I'm on my job, whatever it is, whether I'm working, if I'm on that journey, if I'm sitting there comparing myself to somebody else in different circumstances, that's going to kill my self-talk. That's going to kill my self-compassion. That's going to say, oh, yeah, I'm not good enough. I did that in early recovery. I felt really good about myself. I felt amazing about myself. I just got off drugs. I was getting some things back in my life. I was getting my thoughts back. I was getting some positivity. I was happy. I had an inner happiness that I had never experienced, or that I couldn't remember ever experiencing. And then I get on social media and I'm like, ah, shit, that person I graduated high school with is graduating college, or that person I went to college with is married, buying a house, starting a career. And here I am in my parents' basement, starting all over. And that comparing just killed me in that moment. Brought me way down and say, man, I really did fuck up. I really did mess up to the point where I can't recover. And so when I started challenging those ideas, that's where I could start growing again. I didn't let that get me down. I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let that say, just because I'm in this circumstance doesn't mean I can't still move myself forward. So when we challenge those ideas of negative self-talk, and we get rid of that comparing ourselves to other people, we can start to move past that perfectionism. We can start embracing those imperfections and continue to grow. And two other things that I think can play a big part of overcoming that is, mindfulness and gratitude. And we did those challenges, in March. If you were with us, if not, go back and check out those Friday challenges on in March, where we brought a different idea of well-being. And mindfulness and gratitude were their own two separate challenges throughout that month. And start, with mindfulness, you're just being aware of how you feel. You're being aware of those thoughts, right? You're aware of that thought of perfectionism. You're aware of saying, oh, if I don't go at this full blown, 110%, then I just can't start. And I don't have the time to do that, so I'm not going to start today. Well, then you don't have the time tomorrow. Then you don't have the time the next day, the next week, the next month. And so then you just never start. So when you're aware of those and you can challenge that in that moment, you can be mindful in that moment and say, well, I can start with 30 minutes tomorrow. I can get up and go for a walk, or I can get up and go for a jog, or I can get up and try to lift. I got some dumbbells sitting right there. I can pick those up for 30 minutes tomorrow. And so being mindful can help you just process those thoughts in that moment and challenge that right then and there before that procrastination even starts. And then gratitude, that's really just being grateful for the present. It's being grateful for what you have and embracing what you have. And that idea of perfectionism, of building to perfectionism, sometimes we lose sight of just our resources that we have right now, or we lose sight of the opportunities that are in front of us right now, because we want this perfect thing that's going to be off in the future that one day maybe we can attain if we just throw everything else away right now and we jump into that. So being grateful for what you have, the resources you have, the time you have, and being able to use those things that you have in that moment to get to where you want to be is how you can get past that perfectionism idea, is how you can embrace that imperfection and say, yeah, my journey to success, to where I want to be, isn't going to be perfect. It's not going to be easy, but I got this support system right here that can help me get there. Or I got this connection, or this resource that can help me, that can mentor me, that can motivate me, that can help navigate my way through this career to where I can get to that point that I want to get to. So there's different strategies, and there's different ways to challenge our perfectionism. And obviously not each one of those that I mentioned are going to work for everybody, but it's something you can try. It's something that you can pull out of in your life to say, well, I haven't tried that yet. I haven't tried to just be grateful in the moment for what I have and using what I have to move forward. Or I haven't tried setting those realistic goals. The goals I set always seem to be too high and I never achieve them. So then I always feel like a failure. Well, now set some realistic goals, and then maybe you can take those steps to get to that next point. And then when we do all that, right, when we understand what perfectionism is in our life, when we understand the impact that's having in our life, and then we start coming up with some strategies or some ways to challenge that, then we can really get to that level of self-acceptance and getting past that idea of I can't accept myself unless things are perfect. Then, if we never reach that point of being able to accept ourselves when things aren't perfect, you're never going to be able to accept yourself. You're just never going to get there, because things probably are never going to be perfect. You might have like fleeting moments where things seem perfect, uh, but that's right before something smacks you in the face, and you got to adjust, you got to adapt, and you got to kind of start in a different way or change things again. And so to be able to accept yourself once you understand, like, okay, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to have my strengths. I'm going to have my weaknesses. Maybe some things that you're really strong in is your time management, and you have that, so you can use that to start moving forward, and you can focus on that to really build that walkway or those stepping stones. But maybe a weakness of yours is just your balance. And so you're able to manage your time, but then things get out of balance and you start managing your time in the wrong ways because you're spending too much time here and not enough time over there. So maybe balance is something else that you can then put together and make it work a little bit more. So when you can embrace your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, and then adjust, maybe partner them with a strength, or use one of your strengths to pull up that weakness or focus on that weakness a little bit more, then you can accept yourself a little bit more. Then you can say, okay, I understand these are my flaws. These are things I'm good at. Now, how can I use both of these, or how can I look at both of these to keep myself moving forward, and getting to that place that I want to get to? And then obviously I think a big thing with self-acceptance is just that inner peace, right? That's something that I experienced to a level that I never thought I was going to experience. You know, in active addiction, being on drugs, going through the things that I went through, trying, almost every drug there was, putting myself in these positions of um, danger, or unhealthy risk, or just doing all these negative things that went against the way I was raised, what I truly felt deep down. And so that I never had an inner peace. I never had that self-acceptance of being able to accept myself when I'm putting a needle in my arm, or when I'm, manipulating and going behind the backs of everybody I love, or when I'm throwing away opportunities that I dreamed of as a kid. Playing soccer in college, and even having some doors open. Moving past that was something I threw away because I wanted to get high. And so then when you throw away an opportunity, or after I screwed my parents over, or after I hurt a friend, and then that next day I'm full of shame, I'm full of guilt, um and I shove it all down further with another hit. I shove it all down further, with another line or whatever it may be. And it's really hard to accept yourself in those moments. It's really hard to be able to find anything positive. And so getting clean and starting to do better, because again, I'm not perfect in this, and I've had my days where some of those old behaviors, or some of those old attitudes or thought processes come out and have damaged some different things I was doing at the time, or has put me in a hard place. But I've been able to embrace my imperfections in that. I've been able to say, like, man, the decisions I made before, the habits I developed, the behaviors that became so common, I didn't even think about them. They come out every once in a while, or they try to come out. And either I can fully embrace it, just say, screw it, screw the life I built, screw the peace I found. I can jump into this full board because I've already messed up. That happened yesterday. I don't really want to look that in the face, so I'm just going to keep going. Luckily, Sometimes it's taken me, a day, sometimes it's taken me a couple days, sometimes it's taken me a week, but I've been able to look at that behavior and say, nah, this isn't what I'm about anymore. And it's tough. It's tough to be able to do that. But with that toughness, it brings an inner peace, and it brings a sense of I'm doing my best. I'm trying. All I can do is continue to do that. And some people are going to accept that and some aren't. And when you have that inner peace, that doesn't really matter. Yeah, you want to do your best to make up for maybe something you did that affected somebody else or hurt somebody else. But when you have that inner peace, you know what you're working towards. So even if somebody's, in your ear telling you, no, you're a failure, no, you're a horrible person, no, you suck, no, you're this, no, you're that, you have that inner peace to say, I understand why you feel that way. I understand why you're saying that. I accept that. But I know what I'm working towards. And you'll see it eventually, or you won't. And so self acceptance brings an inner peace that it, I think we all want to strive for. When you have inner peace, it brings a lot more joy into your life, and it brings a lot more happiness and fun, and you're able to live life the way you want to, and you're able to live life on life's terms and be okay with that. When that, your car breaks down, or when you're running late, or when you wake up late, or whatever those things may be, you're able to roll with those challenges, those obstacles, and keep your life moving forward. And so that's, those are some of those things that you get when you overcome that idea of perfection, right? And you can set those boundaries. You can have those support systems that help you do that. You can, do some of the things we talked about earlier. But letting go of that idea of perfectionism, and letting go of, because that really only comes from comparison, right? Because we look at something and we see it as perfect, or somebody sells it as perfect. And so we compare our life to that, whether that's something, all the way down to the shoes I'm wearing, the shirt I have on, the hairline that I have, uh, whatever it may be. Those things can take away that inner peace when we compare it to what somebody's telling us is perfect. But I'm gonna look at all that stuff and I'm gonna say, well, I got a shirt on. Well, I still got some hair, even if my hairline's receding. Well, I got shoes that get me, that I can put on, I can wear to work, and I'm good. Um, it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to look perfect. Then we get rid of that. We get rid of that idea of perfectionism, and we really stop to compare ourselves. And that's something, Annabelle and I are hitting on in our body image series this month. So definitely check that out on Fridays. Our one with social media, which really all is, there's a lot of idea and talk about comparison. So definitely check that one out on, coming out on Friday. But that idea of embracing imperfections and accepting yourself where you're at, and understanding these are the things I need to change. These are my strengths that I can leverage to make those changes, and these are the places I want to go. That's where you're going to be able to do that. That's where you're going to be able to throw that idea of perfectionism out the window, embrace your imperfections, and move forward to places that you never thought you could get to in your life. So try it, try it out. If there's something, an idea that you have, comment what that idea is. If there's something you can take and use in your life, let us know. If there's something that you could give to somebody else, let us know in whatever way you want to do that. But that's what is important with that, is that we all learn from each other. We all, at least keep an open mind. We all stay willing to learn from each other. So that way we can take what we need and not what we don't need. And we can keep moving forward. And then we can give some of that back to other people in our life by just sharing and having these same conversations. So we always appreciate you on the journey with us, you checking in with the episodes, you like, commenting, or subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, definitely do that. But it's again, it's a wonderful journey. I always appreciate your time for joining us. Time is one of the most important things in the world. So when you spend a little bit of time listening to our conversations or listening to one of the wonderful guests we have on for the journey segments, we're grateful. We're glad to have you, and we want to hear from you. So yeah, have a great rest of your Wednesday or whatever day it is that you're listening to this on, and we'll see you next time on Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate.